So guys, the tariffs, the EU tariffs that just got approved, but this is actually bullish for NIO. Let me explain, all right? But first, let's get some of the good news out of the way. Global China EV is reporting that there's about 100,000 locked in Envo orders. That could be true, that could not be true. Of course, that is an estimate. We know that orders have been exceeding expectations 3 times more than expected. Lock-in orders, about 35 to 40% of all pre-orders have been turned into locked-in orders. A lot of people have about 16-week wait time for their cars, for their envelope cars. There's huge demand, and it's really up to production to catch up with demand. So supply needs to catch up with demand. And on the supply front, we actually got this really interesting article from Envo themselves here in China, the Envo app. And they revealed that they actually didn't produce a whole lot of cars before the actual launch event. So they only produced about 2,000 cars prior to September 20th. And those 2,000 cars, about half of them were showroom cars and test drive vehicles, and then the other half were pre-built cars for delivery. People that want to get their cars first, and they can get those. So that kind of goes in line with the amount of deliveries they had in September, 800 cars delivered. So that kind of matches up. But then going forward, they said, the Envo head of Envo customer experience, Qinghua, the guy that drove his Envo all across China and live streamed everything, he explained that the reasoning for the production ramp up, like why it's taking so long, is because it uses some of the newer tech and newer materials like a 8295P chip, and they're stockpiling a lot of them, and they're really fixing up a lot of these supply ramp up issues, and they're making sure that they can get deliveries out there, get the cars out there, and they've made several improvements already, actually, according to them. So they're going to be able to pump out more cars, which is very, very nice. But then going forward, he said that in October, 5,000 plus production, no problem. And then it's going to slowly wrap up to December, more than 10,000 plus production. So that kind of lines up. We can expect pretty much 5,000-ish deliveries for October. That's pretty good in my opinion. All right, 5,000. Combine that with NIO's 20,000. That's going to push us to new record levels, 25,000 monthly deliveries. That's going to be very, very nice. Very, very bullish, guys. But then, of course, today the EU voted on tariffs. They approved those tariffs up to 45%. And you see the bears coming out screaming about this and saying, hey, game over, and that kind of shit. You got to understand, first of all, you got to think, why does Germany oppose these tariffs? All right, how many cars do German companies sell in Germany versus how many cars do they sell in China? They sell a lot more cars in China than in Germany or in Europe. All right, China is a bigger market than Europe. So they're against these tariffs. Why? Because there's going to be retaliation from China. Higher import taxes, all right? It's pretty much guaranteed. Also, a few days ago, we heard news articles about how they've agreed not to impose tariffs. They're going to settle on a minimum price. Apparently, that's not the case. So tariffs are indeed going through. But you got to also know that in Europe, NIO doesn't actually sell a whole lot of vehicles. All right, they don't sell a whole lot of vehicles every month, maybe a couple hundred here and there. Not a whole lot of vehicles, whereas in China, that's where most of their deliveries happen. Same for those German companies. They don't want tariffs because if China raises those import taxes for those cars, right, those exports, their cars are going to be a lot more expensive here in China. And that's going to make their cars less attainable here in China. And what's that going to do? All right, think about this. A customer here in China is considering BBA, Benz, BMW, or Audi. They're looking at maybe a 3 Series, all right? The 3 Series, it costs maybe 300K RMB. Let's just put that as the threshold, all right? But then you got those tariffs. Those tariffs get slapped on. China import retaliation tariffs, 20% more expensive, all right? Now, all of a sudden, instead of paying $300,000, you're paying 360,000 RMB for your BMW car. And meanwhile, NIO, of course, here in China, is still at the same price. So, relatively speaking, NIO is cheaper compared to those BBA cars. So, BBA is already losing market share to NIO. 70% of NIO owners were BBA owners before. So they used to own a BMW or Mercedes or Audi. My family, we used to own BMWs, and then we switched to NIO. All right. So, 70% of customers come from people that are buying Audis and BMWs and Mercedes. And now, right, with these EU tariffs, China is definitely going to retaliate. That's going to make their cars more expensive. That's going to cause customers to rethink about purchasing a BBA car here in China. And, well, the closest alternative in the EV age is, of course, a NIO. And even in terms of gasoline cars, all right, some people might say, go for the hybrids, EREVs, but most of the time people go with a NIO. That's the most direct sort of comparison that you can have in terms of luxuriousness, the customer service. Of course, it's even better than BBA's customer service and sort of perks and benefits that you get, like NIO House and community and all that kind of cool stuff. So all in all, yes, NIO is going to be impacted by these tariffs when they're selling cars in Europe, but those cars, they're not a lot, all right? And also, there's subscription in Europe. You can rent the car and not buy the car, right? And sure, NIOs might become a little bit more expensive down the line in Europe, but most of their deliveries happen here in China. Most of those German companies' deliveries happen here in China. And their cars, import cars, are going to be more expensive. At the end of the day, Germany loses. All right, Germany loses. That's why they're against these tariffs. All right, that's why they're against these tariffs. So even though it looks bad on paper, you should be smiling. You should be happy. All right, there's going to be more customers buying NIO here in China down the line, a few years down the line. Everybody's going to be buying NIO. And it's already happening, right? They got excellent trade-in programs directly targeting BBA customers. You drive your BMW 3 Series, it could be like 1 year old or 2 year old or even a little bit older than that, and you can trade it in for brand new NIO and drive it home. All right. Of course, the second-hand price of that BMW or Audi or Mercedes has to match the price of the ET5. It's not like NIO's losing money on this. It's just a convenient way to make everything very smooth, all right, and not such a big hassle. So they're already doing that, and soon we're going to see more and more BBA customers switch to NIO. So I'm actually very happy with these tariffs, right? I know it sounds counterintuitive, but I've explained it well enough. I'm actually happy with these tariffs. It means BBA guys are going to have a harder time selling their cars here in China. More sales for NIO in China, and China makes up most of the deliveries for NIO. So EU tariffs doesn't really matter. It actually helps NIO out. All right. Hopefully I explained that well enough. And it's bullish, guys. It's bullish. Ignore the bears. Tell them that, German cars are going to be more expensive in China now. So that's great for NIO. Tell them that. All right. As always, stay safe, stay healthy. Peace out.